Hey guys, welcome back to Pop Culture with Pat. Today we are talking about The Falcon and the Winter Soldier, Episode 3. Alright guys, so again, just for those of you who are new, we're going to be talking about The Falcon and the Winter Soldier Episode 3. This is going to have spoilers in it, so if you haven't seen the episode by now, make sure you go ahead and do that, then come back and check this out afterwards. And also, if you guys are new, I'm doing reviews for every single episode of this series. I also did reviews for the WandaVision series as well, so make sure if you are new to the channel, hit that subscribe button as well as the bell button next to it. That way you don't miss anything at all. And without further ado, let's go ahead and talk about Episode 3. So the episode, it starts off pretty early on where we see Sam and Bucky, and they go to visit Zemo in prison, specifically Bucky. He goes to talk to him because they kind of have like a history together, as you guys know. So he goes to talk to him, and first thing, of course, as soon as he walks into the room with this guy, he tries doing the whole mind control thing. He sees that it doesn't work, but he does mention a comment that he's like, ooh, I can still see there's a little bit of something in there. So he makes, that comment. They have their conversation, and then afterwards we see Bucky, and he's with Sam, and then we find out that Bucky, in his way, helped Zemo escape from prison. They end up meeting, or Zemo ends up meeting up with those two, and then he's going to take, Sam and Bucky, take them over to Madripoor to, I'm probably saying that, Madripoor, probably saying that wrong, but I know it has some like X-Men origins. I'm not completely familiar with it. I just know I've seen people, talking about it online, but he takes them to there, and basically they have to go to the city dressed up. Well, at least Sam and Bucky have to dress up as different aliases. So Bucky, he has to go as a Winter Soldier, and then Sam, he actually has to dress up as a character called the Smiling Tiger, which is pretty funny. So they're going there. We find out that this place, especially like in the lower part of like the city, it's filled with like a lot of like different like criminals and stuff like that. So it's definitely not a place that you just want to like go in there and have like a party. So they end up going into like this club, and we start to hear more about like the power broker. And Zemo, he makes like a comment, and he says like, yeah, basically this guy is like in charge here. He's the judge, jury, and executioner. So it seems like, obviously this guy has a lot of control. We're starting to learn a little bit more about him, which is great. And then they end up they're going to this bar or whatever to meet up with this character named Selby, because Zemo believes that he wants to check to see, where like the super soldier serum is in the city, if it is still here. So they end up getting a meeting with her. They go to like the back room, talking to her character, and he's like, oh, like, I'll give you, the Winter Soldier in exchange, like, for some information, basically lying to her, saying, like, oh, yeah, I'll give you, like, the words to control him and everything like that. But, and she's like, oh, yeah, there was a guy by the name of Dr. Nagel, and he was the one who basically helped, like, recreate the super soldier serum, and they asked for more information. She's like, yeah, I'm not going to do that, because if they did, she'd probably end up dead. She's not dumb. So then, as they're there, Sam, who's supposed to be like the Smiling Tiger, he ends up getting a phone call, and he's like, damn, you're like right there, like, what the hell, Sam? You're like, you just had to mess it up. You couldn't have had your phone like on vibrate or silent or something, going into a place like this. So they go in there, and he gets like the phone call, and she tells him to put it on speaker, and he tries to play it off. It's his sister, and he's going back and forth. But at the end of the conversation, she ends up blowing his cover because she calls him Sam, and then Selby's like, who the hell is Sam? And then basically tells them to kill these guys, the bodyguards that are in there. But Selby, she ends up getting killed by like a bullet. And then from there, all the guys like Zemo, Bucky, and Sam, basically they got a price put on their head. And from there, they have to, run out of the club and basically try to escape the city without getting killed. As they're leaving, though, so they're running, Zemo, you see him like take off. Bucky and Sam, you're running away from like these guys on like motorcycles and stuff like that. And then we see the guys get like picked off, and then you see Zemo, and he's like, oh, you must have like a guardian angel. And then we get to see, someone come out of the shadows. It's Sharon, and, it's pretty cool to see her character, come back. So she was the one who took them out, and she's like, oh, well, this is really interesting, because last time, ran into these guys, basically she was, trying to help these guys out, Sam and Bucky, and now she's on the run and can't go back to the United States because of it, and it's all because of, Zemo. So definitely an interesting, conversation, interaction that they have right there with those characters. So they're talking, and, Sam, he tells Sharon, he's like, hey, I can try and get your name cleared so that way you can come back to the United States. And, she finally agrees, but you can definitely see her character has, has changed. She has a little bit of a darker tone because she's having a conversation with Bucky, and she's like, oh yeah, what do you mean? You were always about that superhero life, and kind of, mimicking him and stuff like that. And you can just see that her views on things are definitely a little bit different, which, is kind of understandable because she's been on the run, because she was trying to, do the right thing, or at least what she thought back then. And look where it's got her kind of now. She's on the run. She's in a different country. So it was cool to, to get to see her pop back up, in the Marvel Cinematic Universe and just see this different side of her. So after that, Sharon, she ends up bringing, the three characters. She takes them to this storage yard where it's full of all these dumpster units and stuff like that. And we end up finding that Dr. Nagel's lab is actually hidden in one of these containers. So, the three of those guys, they end up going in there, and then Sharon's keeping an eye on things. And it was really cool. This is probably one of my favorite parts of the episode. We got to see some pretty badass action from Sharon. She's taken out, left and right these different bounty hunters and stuff. Definitely gave me some Black Widow type of vibes and stuff like that. So that was really cool to see that. And she takes out, pretty much all these guys. They have guns, knives, different things. And then, Zemo, Bucky, and Sam, they're inside. They start interrogating Dr. Nagel, and we find out that he was actually brought in by Hydra to revamp the Winter Soldier program. And then he ended up getting picked up by the CIA later on, and was doing tests involving Isaiah's blood, which they refer to. They were oh, there was an American soldier that were using his blood. Pretty sure it was Isaiah's, and I believe Sam confirms that at the end of the episode. And so he was able to recreate the serum. He ended up making 20 vials, but then the Flag Smashers, we find out, are the ones who obviously took it. And then, so that basically confirms, I think, that conversation from the other episode where Carly, the leader of the Flag Smashers, she gets that text message. Basically confirms, I think, that was the power broker that was reaching out to her and was like, hey, you took my shit. If you don't give it back, I'm going to kill you, or I'm going to kill you either way. So pretty much that confirms who that is. I've seen some theories out there, and which actually is kind of interesting at the end of the episode with Sharon, that some people actually think that Sharon could be the power broker. I don't know if that's the case, because I believe they refer to the power broker as a he. It could just be a red herring, as far as that goes. But yeah, so I don't think she necessarily is, but that was an interesting theory that I've seen, floating around the internet as well. Once they get this information, Zemo, he ends up killing Dr. Nagel, shoots him, kills him, and then one of the bounty hunters, they find out that they're in there, so he takes a rocket launcher, blows up the lab. Our characters, they get out, but they're running because there's more bounty hunters that end up showing up. And then, they're able to escape because Zemo, he gets this car or whatever after he takes out a couple of guys with his purple mask on and stuff. So that was cool getting to see that, finally put on in this episode. But he takes out a couple characters, gets this car, picks up, Sam, Bucky, and then, they're like, oh, you should come back to us to the States. And Sharon's like, I can't. And so they're just kind of oh, well, thank you for your help, and we're gonna get your name cleared basically. And then they take off, and then that's when we end up seeing Sharon. She goes back somewhere and she's talking to this woman, and she's like, yeah, we might have a big problem right now. And she's like, I'll tell you on the way, and gets into the car. So there's definitely something weird kind of going on with her character. Don't quite know where they're kind of taking that. Like I said, I don't think that she's the power broker, but maybe she has some kind of connection to him. Although it would be kind of weird. I feel her, bringing Sam, Bucky, and them to the lab to, if this guy did have any super soldier serum, why would she want to bring them to that, to the lab? So I really don't think that's where they're going, but there's definitely something weird going on with her. And then we get to see the Flag Smashers. So they're in this episode a little bit. We get to see at one point Carly was visiting, someone, I believe it was someone in her family, and was visiting her because she was really sick. That character ends up dying because of the disease that she had. And so we find out towards the end, they're trying to get medicine to some of these different camps and stuff like that. And, basically, so they have like good intentions, but as we find out, towards the end of the episode, there's like these people that are in this building, and once Carly and the other character, I forget like his name, from the Flag Smashers, they're leaving, and they end up blowing up, or she blows up the building because he wasn't aware. So we can see that, while she has good intentions, definitely, not going about it like the best way. And she's like, well, this is the only way that they understand. So I really like in the show that, pretty much all of the characters, and it kind of references back to like that first episode with Rhodey, where he made that comment. And so he says something like, alliances are different, like, our allies are now like against us, or, something like that. I'm paraphrasing it, but, he made something to that, like that comment. And now throughout this whole show, we've pretty much seen like all these different characters, the Flag Smashers. We thought they were just like straight up villains at first, but we see they're actually trying to help out, kids and stuff like that in a way by getting them medicine, but they're going about it the wrong way by, killing people and blowing stuff up. So yeah, definitely like a gray line there. We see that, Sharon, like she was like a good character before, but obviously she's kind of, messed up or mixed up in something that's kind of like a little shady. We see like Sam and Bucky, they're willing to bend the lines a little bit. And then at the end of the episode, we also see again, and we saw this in the beginning, that John Walker, we see that he's willing to do whatever it takes to track down the Flag Smashers, and whether that means crossing any lines and, talking to like Battlestar as well. So I'm really interested to see what they're going to do with that character, how far they're going to, he's going to go, willing to get like information and stuff like that. I have a feeling that, he's definitely going to take like one step too far, and I don't think they're going to kill him. And I don't think he's necessarily going to be like a complete villain, but just really, blurring those lines as much as possible. So that's something that I really like about this show, is just with the different characters and how everything is kind of really, really gray. There's no black and white at all, for sure, even for our heroes. And then at the very end of the episode, we have Zemo and Sam. They're going in this building, and I forget like where they end up actually going. I know they mentioned something about like Sokovia, like a memorial. They end up going inside, and they're like, oh, like, Bucky, are you coming? And he's like, no, I'm gonna go take a walk, get some like fresh air, I'll be like right there. And we see him, he picks up like this little silver ball. He walks a little bit farther, goes into an alleyway, like sees like another one like on a building, and then, we can tell he's tracking someone. He knows someone's there, and he's like, hey, like, I was kind of wondering when you were going to show up. He turns around and looks, and then he sees, and I can't remember her name, but she's from, Wakanda. She was one of the people, one of like the guards and stuff like that, higher up people for, Black Panther. And we see that, she's there, and she says that she's there for Zemo. And that kind of references earlier back in the episode where Sam, he mentioned that, Zemo blew up, like the king before, T'Challa. And so, like, obviously those people are, not just going to forget that. So now we see Wakanda coming into things, which was something, going into the show, I had no idea that was going to be, like, a thing that they were going to play into. But it makes, like, total sense when you look at it, like, afterwards, just seeing what Zemo did back in, like, Civil War and how that affected them. So, it totally makes sense. So I can't wait to see how that plays out. But yeah, that's pretty much episode 3. Overall, I thought it was a pretty solid episode. We got to see Madripoor, with, like, some X-Men background. We got, again, I really like this episode, really showcased the blurring of the lines with the different characters and how far they're willing to go. That was one of my favorite things. And we got some badass action sequences, from Sharon. That was a lot of fun. So I thought it was a pretty solid episode, and I'm interested to see what they're going to do as far as like, Wakanda and who's going to come in possibly from there. So I want to hear what you guys' thoughts are on, episode 3. Let me know down below in the comments, how are you enjoying the show overall so far? Again, if you are new to the channel, please hit that subscribe button as well as the bell button next to it, just so that way you get notifications for all my new videos. Please give the video a thumbs up, as it really helps with the YouTube algorithm. Thank you guys so much when you do that, and leave a comment. That also really helps as well. And as always, guys, please make sure to check back for more Pop Culture with Pat.